All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 64 of the AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies class. There we go. Today, we're going to continue to build React apps, and we'll build one last one then tomorrow as a class. Then next week, we'll be working on an exercise together. I have talked to Mr. Gudmested, and he said he did have the class build the exercise together and then turn it in. So I'll explain all of that stuff to you next week. All right. So again, remember that your test was due last Monday. You can still turn it in late, but you'll get points taken off. The later you turn it in, the more points will be taken off. That's all I can tell you. All right. So with that said, I'm going to start by quickly going over what we talked about yesterday. And when I say quick, I mean quick. And that is we looked at this article that's called API 101, a beginner's intro. I'm not going to go over that at all anymore, but I do want to look at this one. This was that React 101, a beginner's intro, and it had you go out to the Rick and Morty API and get information. Well, this is the Rick and Morty API right here, and it's actually at rickandmortyapi.com. So there's documentation for it. You can see the different characters. There's the get all characters. That's basically what we're doing. We're writing code to get all the characters who are in there. All right. But there's other stuff that's in here as well. Now, this is known as a totally public API. What that means is that you can use it without having to log in. You can use it without having to pay anything. You can use it without needing any kind of key or anything else. All right, it is totally public. Now, some places are like this. Some places are what I call semi-public, which means you can get information from them, but typically you need an API key to be able to do anything of any merit. And then there's more private ones where you literally do have to pay a fee, all right, to get different information. All right, so I am going to build this thing, and it's going to be pretty quick. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new folder. I don't think I have one, but we'll see. That's called Rick and Morty. And there it is. So there's nothing in it right now, of course, because I just made it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that folder up. I like to do it like this. As always, you can do this in so many different ways. And I'm going to do a git bash here. So I just open up Git for the folder, and I'm just going to type in npx create react app dot. And that should go in and create our React application for us. You'll be able to see in here as it begins to add all of the files and folders. And I believe I mentioned this yesterday, but I do want to say it again. These are big projects. They average around 300 meg. And out of that 300 meg, about 90 some percent of it is this node modules folder that you see right here. All right. And you'll learn much more about that next semester. Those of you who are taking the class next semester, or in summer if you're going to take the class then. All right. Again, when it comes up with happy hacking like that, it's finished. So I can now exit out of here. All right. And I should have everything in here. There it is. So I'm going to open this up with code. Now, you know this from yesterday and the day before, etc., that if I come in here right now and I go to terminal, new terminal, and I run this, so I say, let's make sure I don't have anything else running on that port. I don't think I do, but just in case. All right, and I put in npm start. I'm going to get that little revolving, not little, but the revolving image or icon for React. It's going to come up and there's going to be really nothing in there. That's it. All right. So that's what they tell you to start with. And that's the way you start virtually any React project. So looking at this Rick and Morty write up in here, all right, we set up the project, we did the npx React, changed the directory, and we brought it up in code. That's half of it already. Now let's look at this because I'm going to just grab all of this code and I'm going to copy it. All right, because that's almost the entire program, but let's look at it. All right. Now, yesterday we looked at use state, and we are looking at use state in here. Now it's done a little differently than we did it yesterday. What do I mean? Well, yesterday we said const, and we said like height, set height equal use state 0. Const weight, set weight equals use state 0. And then we had const BMI, set BMI equal use state, and it was the empty string, and const message, set message equal use state, and it was the empty string. What's different here is we're getting back a lot of information. So we're taking this information and we're putting each character in as an array element. So what we're doing here is we're using set characters and we're setting the state to be an empty array. That's the first thing. Secondly, we're also using use effect right here. And you'll notice there's a fetch. So what this says right here is I want you to go out to here, the Rick and Morty API, and I want you to take the response and give me the response as JSON. Then, for lack of better words, throw the response into a variable called data and the results. And if for some reason it didn't work, give me an error. Now, a couple things about this. All right. Why would it not work? Well, if I didn't have an internet connection, it wouldn't work. All right. If for some reason the Rick and Morty API site was down, it wouldn't work. Okay. The other thing we're doing too is we're saying it again, we're putting this in what was an empty array. And then when we return it, this is a brand new file we're going to put in the source folder called characterlist.js. So we're going to put this code in there, and this is just printing it out. Now, I'm going to grab it again just to make sure I've got it, and it's called character list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got Rick and Morty. There it is. Inside of source, I'm going to add a new file that's called character list.js. It's empty. And I'm going to put in here the same lines I just copied in. And you'll notice that at the end, I'm exporting that, which means that if I want to use that in my program, I'm going to have to import that or bring it in. All right. Now, there's not really that much stuff that I have to do in here, but there's one more line of code. It wasn't mandatory that you add this, but I added it in here. All right. And that is, I made a class right here that I called centered. Why? Because in about 2 minutes, when we show all the characters, it'll now be centered on the screen. Did you have to do that? No, they didn't do it in the example. This is telling it with this map to go through everything that's in there and grab us every image that's in there. All right. And underneath the image, give us the character's name. So we've got this centered. Now, if we don't put it in someplace, we're not going to be able to use it. So I'm going to come in here to index.css right there and in index.css, I'm going to put, it was a div and it had a class of centered. So I'm going to say text align center. And remember, when you want to center images, you center something on the page, it's margin 0 auto. So that's the only CSS that I added. Everything else that was in there was what comes literally with the system, so to speak. All right. And remember this app.css, we don't need any of this stuff. This is the logo, etc. So I can just get rid of all that. Okay. So file, save all. I can close this. I can close this. I'm going to leave my character list open for just a moment. All right. Now, the only other thing I have to do in here is go into my app.js file. Now, this has got a lot of garbage in it I don't need anymore. All right. Well, if I want to, I can also go in. You saw me do this before, and I can remove in here. I can come in and remove logo.svg. I can remove report web vitals, setup tests. I can get rid of all those. And to be honest with you, I'm not really even using app.css, so I can get rid of that too. So I'm going to get rid of all those first. All right. And now I've got to go into, in fact, I don't need the app test here either. So I can get rid of that one. So you can see I've thinned this down. Okay. And in my app.js file, right now it looks like this. Well, I don't have the logo anymore. I don't have the app.css anymore. So I can remove those. Where this class name equal app, I can get rid of everything that's inside of here. And what do I have to do? 2 or 3 more things and we're done. First, I'm going to import React from React. All right. Next, I'm going to import that character list. Remember, we did an export down here. Export default character list. So now I've got to bring it in by saying import character list from, and it needs to know where it is, /character list. And it realizes that by default, it's a .js file. So don't put .js in there. You don't have to. Finally, the only other thing I have to do is in here, I want it to show everything that's in character list. So I do that like this. That's the whole program right there. So file, save all. I come down to here and I tell it to run. Oh, can't resolve. I still have a report web vitals in there. I didn't remove that. So let me remove that. All right. So I got to remove, let's see. I don't need that web vitals there, and I don't need the web vitals down there. That should be everything. Notice it went back and it recompiled the program too. And now it says compiled successfully. So if I bring it up now, there's my program. And there's my Rick and Morty characters. I centered it. So here's each image and an H5 with their name. And those are the people that it went out and grabbed from there. All right. Now, again, that wasn't meant to be a gee whiz. just trying to go over some of the stuff that's in here. All right. So I will make sure that by the end of the day, and let me kill this running process. All right. So now I can basically just close this, but you're going to get this. So that's Rick and Morty. You'll get that one. And now I'm going to go in and immediately build another one. This one will be more complex. This will be that weather app. All right. And after we get done with the weather app, take a break. And then after the break, we'll build the movie app. All right. So we've got Rick and Morty. I don't know if I have one that's just called weather app. Looks like I do not. So I'm going to come in and do the same thing. I'm going to open this. I'm going to bring up my git bash here. Again, this is just the way I do it. I'm not saying that you have to do it this way. npx create react app dot. And again, it'll take a minute or so to go in and start to create all of that stuff. Um, all right, it's just finishing up as you can see. All right, so let's get going. All right, again, just like before, I'm going to now close this because there's no reason for it to be open anymore. I thought I had that open, maybe I didn't. All right, but we're going to bring this up in code. All right. And again, I'm not going to go and run it because you just saw what it looks like when we run a brand new program. So there's nothing new in there. All right. Again, I am going to go in and clean this up a little bit. So under source, I'm going to remove app test, logo SVG, report web vitals, setup tests, and that should be good. Once I do that, I've got to make a couple more changes to clean up a couple more things. So inside of my index, again, I have to remove that import web vitals. And I got to get done with that. All right. And in my app.js, I need to remove the logo from here. I'm going to clean this up right away. And again, I'll just put in hello world. And I'm doing this now just to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. Then there's a good chance I probably forgot to remove something I should have removed. So let's check. And if it gives me an error, there's something missing. Or I didn't remove something I should have, or whatever. If it comes up and it says hello world, it's working. And there it is. Hello world. Okay, so far, so good. Everything is cool. All right, so I'm going to stop the run here. All right, and I'm going to make this a lot smaller so it's out of the way and move this over as well. So we've got a little bit more room to work with. All right, I'm going to look in my index file. And again, I want you to understand in this index file. This tells me to bring in React. This tells me to bring in the React DOM. So those are both third-party things. In other words, it's going out to the Node package manager and it's finding React and it's finding the React DOM. All right. And then it's saying, hey, in the same folder that I'm in, that index.js is in, there's a folder called index.css. Let me work with that as well. All right. And then finally, again, there is a folder, or I should say not a folder, but a file that's called app.js that's in here. And let me work with that. And what it's saying is everything that we put into our app.js file, we want it to be rendered into that div that's called root in the file in public that's called index.html. Right there. And if you can understand that, that's the beginning of you understanding what's going on here. All right. So I'm going to do this very similarly to the way I did it yesterday. And what I mean is I can now close this and close this. And I'm going to start. I'm going to start by coming in and opening up my index.css file. I'm not going to touch any of this. This is what I get automatically. So I'm going to leave that there. The body stuff, the code stuff, but I'm going to add my own stuff underneath it. All right, I'll set my own type of reset up by coming in here and again saying box sizing, border box. We talked about that yesterday. Margin 0 and padding 0. All right, that's my own reset. So all right, so we've got that done, and I'm going to do a few more things here. Put in some more code just so you see it. All right. What I'm going to be working with is the stuff that's in here. All right, that's in app.css. So I'm going to call this, in fact, we can get rid of all that stuff that's in here like we did before. There. So I'll start by doing that. All right, then let's come back here and let's just add the stuff. Then we'll talk about it. And some of the stuff that's in here, we have talked about before, maybe not as much as we should have. So as I put things in here, I'm going to just keep talking and saying different things, such as the width. I want it to take up the entire screen width. That's 100%. Now you might say, well, for height, why didn't you put 100%? That might work, but as you take the screen and make it bigger and smaller, using 100% for height can have very different type of effects. I'm telling it to have 100 view height, which means that when my screen size basically is 100%, it should be taking up 100% of the height of the screen. All right. I'm going to be placing things on here. And so I'm doing some positioning right now. All right. I'm giving it a background color, which actually isn't going to matter very much. Okay. Whoops, it's RGBA. I'm sorry. And there's our red, there's our green, there's our blue. But I want it to look kind of washed out. So it's got a 0.4. That is the alpha that's in there that has to be between 0 and 1. And the color of my text, I want to be white. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to put in a background image. It's kind of ugly. I showed it to you yesterday, but I'm going to use that one anyway. So now I haven't brought it into my program yet, but I will shortly. All right. And it'll be called weather.jpg. I don't want it to repeat. I want it to be centered and I want it to cover the entire screen. Now I put in here height 100%. I probably should have left that as 100 VH also. And I'm telling it with top zero and left zero, I'm telling it to start way in the upper corner here of the screen, right in there. And I'm giving it a Z index, which you may or may not remember, but I'm giving it a negative Z index. And what that means is I'm going to put other things that I'm going to place on this image. And I want the image to kind of go to the background. So these other things that I'm going to put in here can come and be shown in the foreground. And if that doesn't make sense for whatever reason, just watch and hopefully then it will in a little bit. This is going to be basically where I'm going to search for a city. But um, this is the input box itself. That's going to be the placeholder that's basically going to say to enter a city. Almost finished here. The whole thing will be put into one container. All right, that is all of my CSS. Okay. So let's go into the app.js file. That's where basically all my code is going to be. In fact, before we do that, let me grab that background image. I've got it out here someplace. So let me find it and then grab it. There it is. Boom. So I'm going to come in here into my weather app. I'm going to, underneath source, I'm going to make a folder that's called assets. That's typically the way you do it. And that's where you put your images. And inside of there, I want to literally go and drag in this weather.jpg. There it is. So that'll be my background. All right, that'll save some time later, I believe. So let's come into app.js, which doesn't have much in it now, other than, as you can see, the hello world. I'm going to get rid of that. All right, and start typing some stuff in. And again, probably much of the stuff that we type in here won't make a boatload of sense, and that's okay. All right, we basically, from our app.css, we removed everything from here. We're not even really using this file. I could remove it even, so that I don't need this import statement anymore. All right, but I am going to import both React and that use state that we looked at yesterday from React. And now I'm also going to import Axios from Axios. Now, I'm not going to bring it up. We may have done this yesterday. I don't remember. But Axios is another way that I can go out to this open weather map API and just tell it that if I provided a city, it should go out and find that weather information regarding that city. All right. So again, just like yesterday, this is going to be broken up into two areas. This right here, all right, that is my user. This will be my user interface right there. And this that I'm about to put in right now will be the program logic. All right. So that's how we're going to set stuff up. All right. See if we can get this done, or at least most of it done by our break. So I'm going to have two things that I'm going to be setting basically. So these will, again, these will be our state variables, data. Nothing special about the word data. It's just one that's often used because we're going to go out to an API and we're going to grab data. All right. What gets returned from here is a JSON object. To show that it's an object, I have to put it between curly braces like that. All right, and that's what's going to be returned. I also need one more variable, location. And that will be the name of the city that I type into. That'll be the name of the city that I will type into my text box. So you can see I've got, got two variables, two state variables, one that's going to contain all the data that gets returned, all the data that gets returned from my call out to the open weather map API. All right, that's one thing. And the other will hold the location that I'm going to type in to tell it. It's the city that I'm going to provide, all right, to the Open Weather Map API. All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit now. And what I mean is this is a real long URL. So I'm going to go grab it from a working copy that I have of this because it's just so easy to fumble and make mistakes in there putting that in. So that's it right here. So this may make little to no sense. So let's go over this. All right. You'll notice it's in backticks, which means we want to execute this. We want you to go out to the openweathermap.org, the API portion of it. All right. Notice again, this is called data. This is the version we're using. We're going to pass it in a location, and that location is going to be this location here. We're using imperial units. What imperial means is we want to use Fahrenheit and not Celsius or not Kelvin or whatever. And this is my open weather map. Oops. This is my open weather map API key. All right. All right. There's actually not much JavaScript we have to write in here. Basically, we have to tell it once we put this in to search the location and bring us back the information. So there's only about 10 lines or so here to type, and then we'll build the interface. All right. In English, what this is saying is, all right, if I come in and hit the enter key after putting something inside of that text box, all right, so if I hit the enter key, use Axios, do a get, which means go out to this URL and take the data and return it. Now I'm logging it. You don't have to really do anything. There's no dot catch in here. So if I put in a city and I type in hello and there is no city hello, nothing will happen. I could have put an error message in there that said, hey, the city does not exist or whatever. I just left it the way it was. All right, so let's come in and build this now. Again, this is our interface. Anytime you see something that's in curly braces like this, that means we want the literal value. All right. Um, Don't know why it's putting that line in there. I think that's been a deprecated method, but I'm not sure. Oh, so that'll be my text box right there. All right. Everything that you see in here, that will be my text box. All right. And then everything down here is designed to hold the results. So this, ideally at least, is going to give me the name of the city that I put in. So it'll put it right below there. All right. And then I'm going to start putting in information. All right. Now in English, and that shouldn't be there. Okay. In English, what this means is I want you to go out and check. And if there is a temperature, I want you to show it in an H1 tag. If there is not a temperature, I want you to show nothing, which means that's the null that's right there. Then underneath that, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. All right. But what I'm saying here is if you've got that information, I want you to show me the picture that goes along with it as well. All right. Again, this is kind of a long URL in here. And I want that in backticks. All right. So I'm going to go steal it from my working copy. All right. So this is a little goofed up, but we'll fix it. Now, it may look a little confusing, but again, what this is saying in English is if you can go out and find the picture of the current weather conditions, show it to me on the screen. And if you can't, keep it empty. Have it be null. All right. So we've got that in a div and another div. Break this up over a couple lines here. It's easier to read. All right. And again, looking at this, I can see where you'd be like, well, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What we're saying here in English is what I want to have happen is I want to be able to put in a city. I put in Miami. I hit the enter key. Then underneath that, where I put that information in, I want it to say the name of the city, so Miami. Then underneath that, I want the temperature. Next to the temperature, I want the current conditions. So if it's sunny, it should show me a little pin. Then under that, I want it to tell me basically the feels like temperature, the humidity, and the wind speed. That's what I'm putting in right now. Mm. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but with the humidity. All right, one more and then we're finished. Div. Yeah. Well, it's showing me an error right there, and it shouldn't be. So I'm going to quickly save this. We're just about to take a break, and I'm going to run it. I want to see how many errors that I get. That might not be the only one. All right. So it is showing me, it says it built failure. It doesn't like that line. It says unexpected token. And that's actually causing all of the rest of these. All right. Cannot find assets weather.jpg, so we'll look for that. All right. Should have been under source. So under source, we have assets. And under assets, we've got weather.jpg. So it should be finding it. It is not. So it is 9:02. I'm going to give you a break till 9:15. I'm going to sit in here and debug this, and we will go over it then at 9:15. Ideally, it'll be working by then. All right. So I'll see you in 12 minutes. Oh, Oh, see that. Oh, All right. I have fixed my errors, so let me show you what those errors were. Um, it's working, yet it's not working. So you're going to get the working version, but I was coming in here in my app.js and I was bringing in Axios, which is fine. except in order to bring it in, I have to install it. So I had to come in here and say npm I for install Axios. Now I've already done it. I could do it again, but it'd be a waste of time. As soon as I did that, all of my errors went away. So what happens now is when I run this, it's not picking up my CSS file and it's not picking up my background file. This is what it looks like, pretty ugly. All right, so there's my enter location, and I can put in St. Louis, and I get all that stuff. All right, and here's down on the bottom is my fields like temperature, my humidity, and all that other stuff down here. But it's, like I said, it's not picking up my CSS. What this is supposed to look like is the working version. So I'll show you the working version. And I don't remember which one of these it is, but I think it's that one. We'll find out. So as you can see now, when this comes up, there's my background image. And when I set this to 100% like this, it's taking up 100% of the screen. So if I come in here and I put in St. Louis, there it is. So you get all that information. The feel like temperature, the humidity, the wind speed, the name of the city that I put in, and notice that that cleared. The temperature, with a little icon. So if I change this and put in, for example, Miami, all right, you can see how it changes. All right, if I do it again and put in Brazil, changes again. All right, so I'm going to give you that copy. All right, because I want you to have one that works. So let me grab that. It'll take a while to copy, but I'll copy that over there. All right. And now, rather than me typing in the last one, because it's just a waste for you to watch me type, plus I make enough errors anyway, I'm going to bring up the working version of this. All right. And we're just going to go over it, however long that takes then. Now, this one is going to be actually set up differently. This is set up more like a quote, real React application, unquote. If you say, I don't know what you mean, you will by the time we finish today. And if I run this, you saw this yesterday, I believe. But it comes up, it's already going out to the open MD database. So you can see, for example, I put Lord of the Rings in there. If I click on one of the images, it gives me information about that picture, how much money it made, the cast, the director, the plot, the genre, etc. And I can go back in here and I can change it to Avengers and search, and now I get all the Avengers stuff in here. All right, similar information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend just a few minutes going over this with you. Why am I doing that? Not to confuse you, not to screw you up, not to sit and take 15 minutes away from you, but it's one last middle of doing it, and that is redoing the to-do list app and redoing the to-do list app with what are called components. So the reason for showing you this example is this example actually uses components. All right, so that was the idea behind this. All right, so let's take a look at the code that's in here because it's going to look quite a bit different from what you've seen before. All right, if I go into source, you'll notice I have a folder in there called components. One thing I mentioned to you yesterday was that if I go out here and I go out, for example, to YouTube, all right, this screen is made up of hundreds of components. The whole screen is a component. This is a component. This is a component. So is this. So is this, etc. Notice that there can be component reuse. So however that was set up, this was set up in the same way. So were these. All right. And you also might notice when you put your mouse over them, they become square. And when you don't, they get rounded. So this is showing that we're able to use similar action in here. And here's some other ones. Again, notice this is changing a little bit, so it's doing some effects in here. All right. And I can keep going in and doing this. Well, the reason for mentioning that to you is in this um, movie app, what you'll notice in here is what don't we have? There's no app.js in there. All right, that's the one we've been using to run everything. We still have a public. We have no pictures in here. There is, I believe there was a small, I'll show you in a second. All right, we still have in here our index.html. It's the same file that you saw before with a div ID root. All right, but the only picture in here that I have under source assets, I thought I had it, but maybe I don't. I don't know. But the only picture that's in there is a little background image. That's it. But I wanted to quickly show you these things in here, which probably will make almost no sense to you. And it's okay. Actually, there's an image folder here. I should have made that assets, but that's okay. All right. And in there, that's got the background. That's the background image. Okay. So when we look in here and we go into our index.js file, notice what we're importing at the top here. React from React, React DOM, etc. Then notice, if you would, lines 4, 5, and 6. All right. I have a components folder, and that components folder holds movie details, movie error, and movie list. All right. So we're going to look at those in just a moment. But we're importing them into our program. Also, there's something in here that says, well, you're like, well, what the heck is this? Well, notice the other thing that's being imported into here. And good, bad, or indifferent, one thing about React is they're constantly changing it. So some of the stuff that I created when I originally, a couple of years ago, had already changed. So I had to go in and update my code because the stuff I was using wasn't just deprecated, it wouldn't work. All right. So what I'm doing in here is I'm telling it to switch based on what I want it to show. Do I want it to show my list of movies? Do I want it to show me an error? Or do I want it to show me an individual movie? All right. Again, this is going to be very similar to stuff that you're going to see in both the AWD1111 and AWD1115 classes. So let's just take a couple minutes and look at each one of these. All right. You'll notice, just like before, yeah, we're importing and we got use effect. All right. Which means that we're going to be basically working with something in there, and state, which means we want to be able to change something. Now, when you look in here, and I didn't know how much of this to even show you because, like I said, you might find it really confusing. You'll notice that this now has in here the word props. And what props means is I want to be able to pass something in when I grab the movie details. So what is that? What are the props? It's the name of the movie that I'm searching for. All right. So that's what gets passed in here. And then I tell it to set the movie details for that movie that I passed in. How does it do that? Well, if you look in here, this is telling it to go out to the actual website and find the ID for that movie. All right. And again, what does that mean? Well, if I run this again, all right. So if I run this and I take my mouse and I put it over one of the movies, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to see. But in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen now, right up above my search box, as in there, the localhost 3000, then it has the ID of that movie, which here is TT0848228. And if I put it to the one next to it, that changes. All right. So again, what I'm telling the system to do, all right, is to find the ID of my currently selected movie. Then I'm telling it to call a routine to extract the details from that. Just like when we looked at the open weather thing, I grabbed from there the name of the city, the temperature of the city, the feels like temperature of the city, the humidity, and the wind speed. Now I'm telling it to go in here and grab different information. All right. So notice I'm still coming in here. There's my URL. There's my movie key. I'm telling it to come in and return that information. What information? Well, if you look, I'm telling it that I want it to give me the title. I want it to give me the year the movie was made, the rating for the movie. All right. Then under here, I want you to show me the poster for the movie. All right. And then down here, the genre, the plot, the movie details, the plot rather, the director, the actor, and the box office. There was a bunch more stuff we could have put in here. I played around with it, fudged around with it a little bit. But again, what you see here with genre, plot, director, etc. All right. Genre, plot, director. All right. So that's what we're doing. So in this movie details, we're telling it to that we just passed into you the ID of one of the movies that's in the database. And we're telling you to go out and find the information about that particular movie. The error is pretty simple. Should just say movie not found. Please try again with a valid title. I don't even know if I have this or not, but let's see. So if we go back in here and I put in whatever. All right, well, of course it'll find something. How about just put in some garbage. All right, movie not found. Please try again with a valid title. If you click the button, it brings you back so you can try it again. All right, that is this. Movie not found. Please try again with a valid title, and it brings you back to where you were. All right. Then there is the list of movies. This is the entire big list of everything. Okay. So what is that doing? Well, notice what's in here. we've got 3 different state variables. One for our search term, that's whatever we're going to enter into that text box. One that's going to have all of the movies, and another one that we're going to set to true if we put a movie in there, a title in there where there's no movies with that title. All right. Now, kind of an interesting thing here in that this example, as it says, uses local storage. What does that mean? That means that it is storing information on your machine. That's why if I do this, if I go back to here and I type in Harry Potter and I click search, it shows me all that Harry Potter stuff. You've already seen that. There you go. But if I kill this and then tell it to run again, so I'm coming back in here and I'll tell it npx kill minus port 3000. So it's totally dead now. And I clear and I say npm start. It comes right back to Harry Potter. It remembers where we were. All right. It kept that value in the local storage. And you may or may not remember this from an earlier lecture, but local storage then is basically it's like a mini database, but it's on your own machine. All right. And there's other stuff that happens in here, like it says, handle the change. Notice there's a movie URL, and that movie URL is similar to the weather URL before that we looked at. You'll notice in here, that is going to be the name of the movie that we type in. All right. The search term, and that's the movie name. All right. And the other thing I would tell you about this too, let me kill this. Yeah. All right. The other thing again is if I bring back up that weather app that we had looked at, in fact, let me bring it up like this. Very similar to what we just looked at. And what I mean is it is grabbing the location that we are entering into that text box. That's what goes in here. What this allows us to do, the magic of this stuff, so to speak, is what it allows us to do is to make repeated requests out to an API, to an application program interface. All right. And as we go in and as we make those requests, we can request different information every time, be it a different city for the weather, a different movie for the details, etc. All right. Now, again, I was going to key this in, but I just thought it would be a kind of a waste of time. So what I will do is I've got these two, and I'm going to grab this one as well. That movie one, well, it'll be out here. All right. I don't know, maybe I started copying it already, maybe I didn't, but it'll be out here. And I'm going to put that out here. Now, again, tomorrow, the plan is, all right, the plan is that I'm going to do a to-do app from scratch, and it'll use these components. All right. I wanted to show you this because these are more reminiscent of, quote, real apps, unquote. The one tomorrow is just basically converting the one that we did, the one that you did in JavaScript. We're converting it over. All right. So that'll be what we'll work on tomorrow. And on Monday of next week, we're going to start on this project. But before we do, I'm going to go back and I'm going to write React. Using React, I'm going to write rock, paper, scissors so you can see what that is like. All right. I hope I feel better this weekend. And if I do, I want to grade and get everybody's graded and get back up to date on that. All right. But other than that, it's a little bit early. We're finishing even earlier today, but as you can hear, my voice is going. So I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks.